Well, good morning. Happy Monday. I just want to jump on here real fast and give you a quick devotion for this Monday, um, as with the take with us this week. And something I shared with the church yesterday for our kind of a verse to lead us into worship yesterday morning. It's in John, the Gospel of John 16, verse 33. It says, "These things I have spoken unto you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." Let's break this verse down for a moment. When he says, "These things I have spoken to you," that's what Jesus has told us in John chapter 14, John chapter 15, and John chapter 16. That Last Supper, that Passover night, in the upper room as they were going across Jerusalem into the Garden of Gethsemane, the instructions that he gave us before he went to the cross. John 14, 15, and 16. It'd be really good for every Christian, every believer, to take some time and read those passages to kind of refresh our memory on how we should conduct ourselves and how we should abide in him and find our identity in him. But he said, "These things I have spoken to you." That's what he's been talking about. That in him you may have peace. There's only one way to have peace, and that's through Christ. That's through a relationship with him, abiding in him every day. Because there's too much in this world. There's too much trials. There's too much suffering. There's too much tribulation. There's too much inward turmoil that goes on at times to not have that relationship with Christ. If you know him, abide in him, have that identity. That's kind of what we've been talking about in our series on Sunday morning. But the next sentence in this verse, "In the world you shall have tribulation." Now let's define tribulation. Now, every one of us are going through some sort of trial of some sort. Tribulation, trial, suffering, however you want to call it, it comes in three forms, three phases in life. You're either going into a trial, you're in the midst of a trial, or you're coming out of a trial. I've often said that storms come in the form of tornadoes. They're sudden. Hurricanes, they're on the horizon, they're coming. Or just a quick thunderstorm. It does a lot of damage. And it goes on. You can compare that, use that analogy. But also, I thought about this. My trial may not be the same as your trial. The tribulation that we deal with here in America could be different than the tribulation that some of my friends over in Egypt are going through, or in Panama, or in the Middle East, or Europe, or any other country. A communist country. They go through different trials, different tribulations. Therefore, we cannot compare it, but yet it goes right back to the idea of we do have tribulation because we live in this sin-cursed world, regardless of who we are, until the Prince of Peace comes to set up his kingdom on this earth. We're going to have tribulation, but we can have peace in our heart and our soul because he says, "Be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." Through Christ's death, burial, resurrection, ascension, and soon coming, he has overcome the world. Therefore, we trust in him who has overcome, and we can overcome. We can be of good cheer. We can rejoice in tribulation. Great verse here. Let's apply that to the last week or so. We all know it's been a challenging week nationally speaking. There was a murder in Charlotte, been an assassination this last week, school shooting. Stuff like that takes a damper on the American psyche. Let's just say that. Everybody's got opinions. This isn't for me to opine, but to apply this verse to what we're going through on a national level, but also on a personal level. Whenever those times come, we've got to do what I talked about last week, lament. When those deep-seated convictions clash with the love for our neighbor and love for others, lament. Give it to God. Let God deal with situations. There's a releasing there. There's a surrender. We cannot not love our neighbor as ourselves as believers. Also, be very careful with our words. When we're tempted to opine, when the situation doesn't call for it, we can mess ourselves up. So therefore, we must guard our words and guard what we say Many times we may not mean it. And then also we see, give it to the Lord. Be of good cheer. Have that hope in Christ. John 14, 15, 16, great chapters. And he ends with, "In these things I've spoken to you, that in him you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." Take that verse with you today. Take that verse with you this week. And I hope and Trish have a great day. I hope you have a great week. Enjoy this beautiful weather. Blessings.